Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by American retro design expert Dustin Lee and the ever-talented South African illustrator Lisa Glantz. This week we're talking about how no one really knows what the they're doing. And on that bombshell, let's get into the show, people.
Are you allowed to say that? Can we say the F word?
We'll bleep it out. So, guys, we're here. We're doing this episode. We're getting, dare I say it, a tad risque. I don't know how I feel about this. Well, this is normally a family show, so I'm expecting some bleeps in there. But yeah, the whole premise is, I think this circles around a lot of what we cover on the show. Impostor syndrome, comparing yourself to others. They're all pretty bad things, right? And I think so much of this comes from the premise of the big names in your industry, those big designers you look up to, just thinking like, man, they're so perfect. They got it all figured out. It's so easy for them. And it's nonsense because no one actually knows what they're doing. I don't. Do you guys?
Not a clue most of the time.
Oh, actually, before we jump in, it's worth putting a caveat on this episode. Dustin and I, we're at Creative South next week, right? And I can't wait. And I really hope we can meet some of you guys and hang out. It's going to be super fun. Sadly, Lisa can't attend. And nor can Ian, who obviously isn't here today. He's speaking somewhere else. But we've never, he's a big name these days. What can I say? Yes. He's risen above us. But yeah, like we wanted to do this episode because we were this close to not being able to fit it in the schedule. We can't record next week because we're at Creative South. And I was like, no, we're going to miss a week for the first time in 2 years. So we kind of scrambled together our schedules. We've jumped on now. I think we're going to split this one into a two-parter just to keep that consistency. But there's a lesson there, kids. I really believe in consistency. We wanted to keep putting out this show. We should have done what loads of people do when they run out of steam. Just be like, oh yeah, and that was season 1. So this is the end of season 1. We'll be back in a month for season 2.
even though it took 2 years to make season 1, but yeah.
Instead, we're just
long first season.
Drive into insanity, and then we're just like, we're done. The band's breaking up.
I'm scared. Like the second we miss 1 week, then you lose momentum.
I don't know.
You know?
Well, yeah, I guess. But also, we can't be perfect, which is what this episode's about.
Okay, so speaking of which, Lisa, you're pretty perfect, right?
Yeah.
What?
You got it all nailed down. Tell us about that.
Oh my word. I must be the most unperfect human being on this earth.
Well, first of all, let me just correct you. That's actually imperfect.
Oh.
So there's your first example of that.
I can't even speak English. That's
nicely done, Tom.
Nice. Okay. Definitely, what I've realized, you keep thinking the more you do something or the more you practice something or the longer you are down the road, you think it's going to get easier. I'm telling you, it just doesn't. And I just think that it's because we're constantly striving for that perfection. And I think the minute you embrace the fact that you really are not, I don't know if that's like halfway to madness or if it's actually halfway to freedom, but I am far from perfect. It's actually frightening. I actually wonder how I get stuff done because I'm flapping around in the dark most of the time.
Can you dig a bit deeper on that? Like you're flapping. What does that look like?
Well, because I wear all the hats in my business, from whether it's like fixing a few things on my website to actually figuring out in marketing to social media, which I'm terrible at, to actually doing that.
No, you're not.
I am. I really am. I've realized that it's actually it's why what do you call it? That like
kryptonite.
Yes, that's it. And yeah, like to actually drawing, to trying to like pursue different avenues in my business, to I don't know, having fun, all those things. I actually don't know what I'm doing half the time. I literally, I go to, I think to myself like, wow, how did you get so far? Because I just don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But it's okay. It's okay. It's working. So I've learned to not beat myself up too much.
You know that? You know that feeling? Okay, have you guys ever been scuba diving?
No.
I haven't. Snorkeling, but...
I'm sorry, snorkeling. That's what I meant. Have you guys been snorkeling?
Yeah.
I have.
Okay, like when you first start doing it, like, and you try to take a breath and your face is underwater and like your body does not want to let you do the inhalation. You know what I'm talking about? Like your body is like, F no, like, no, we don't do that, guy. Like, remember your face is underwater.
Yeah, so you start doing this weird, like, spasmodic swimming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I remember it took a long time for me to get my body to do it. And I feel like running a business or doing freelance work or doing any work, which in design, you're always doing something where you're not completely comfortable with how to do it and you're waiting for someone to tell you did it wrong. And I feel like when I started, for instance, Retro Supply, I had that feeling like I was trying to take a breath with my face underwater. And I've only, like, after years of doing it, it still feels weird, but I can take the breaths now. Is that analogy too far off, or you get it?
No, it's actually...
I get it.
It's perfect in an imperfect way.
And thank you for stepping up with the analogies, because without Ian being here,
exactly,
I was a little worried we wouldn't be getting any. I mean, I like to think of perfection much like a builder. A kind of my level of perfection is very much like an ugly, inept, clumsy man of a builder, and just dropping stuff and falling over his own feet. That's how
Tom,
I like to operate.
I think out of all of us, and I mean all four of us, that you appear to be the one who strives the closest to perfection.
I think maybe I strive for it the most. Doesn't mean I get there.
I think you're willing to sacrifice the most. You're willing to stay up late and hurt yourself mentally and physically in the pursuit of trying to do it.
Just to caveat that's like maybe a bit over dramatized. I'm not there like flogging myself and pouring candle wax on my arms as I'm working away there.
That's a hell of an imagery.
I picture you putting like that stuff on your wrists, like in South Park, to numb them so you can type more on the keyboard because you have a couple more people you need to reach out to try to network.
Yeah, I mean, I do that, obviously.
Obviously.
I got thinking about this recently. Do you guys know Chase Jarvis, who runs Creative Live?
I don't know.
He's got his personal
awesome
stuff as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's awesome. And I follow him on Instagram and we chat like a little bit, which I'm trying to make it sound like we're friends. I basically bug him in his DMs and he occasionally responds. But yeah, like he put out something the other day that was so on point, and I'm going to murder his wording. I'm not even going to try and quote him, but the basic premise was people are looking to me for like inspiration, like I've got it all figured out, but I'm basically making it up as I go along as much as we all are. Yeah. So we're all figuring it out together.
Yeah,
and I think like that was the message I wanted to get across today. I wanted this to be a little therapy session, a little sanity check for us and all the listeners of like really we've been banging on this drum right since we started the show. We've been trying to expose our vulnerabilities. We've been trying to show the whole side of it, not the highlight reel of social media. You know, we're trying to be honest and candid, and truthful with everything we do. I still get it though. I still look at these people and I'm like, they're superhuman. How are they doing some of this stuff? And I suck because I'm all like imperfect and vulnerable and weak by comparison. And yeah, like, do you guys guilt yourself as much as I think I do with this stuff?
I'm not even joking. So I go to therapy bi-weekly. Try to go more, but I'm always like busy with something. Anyways, literally this last time I went to therapy, which was like 2 days ago, the entire session was spent on my anxiety and hostility towards other people and trying to keep up in this backbiting rat race. Stab your enemies in the front and stab your friends in the back because they're the only ones that will turn around to let you. You know what I'm saying, man?
Should we be worried right now?
What?
Should we be worried right now?
Yeah.
I mean, you're dropping that
Should we
bombshell,
phone someone?
which is that's pretty dark. I'm meeting you next Wednesday for the first time. I'm gonna have my back to the wall, my friend.
Yes, you are, and there's a dark alley
For
I
more
want to show you
reasons
late
than
one
one.
night after you're inebriated. Not actually like the backstabbing. Like what? But I do. I like it disturbs me. I literally talked to a therapist about it.
I think, you know what, I know we've all heard this 1,000 times and it gets quite boring to talk about it, but it is true that social media gives you this impression that everyone's having this fabulous life and you're the only moron that's like left, not knowing what they're doing. But that's what the thing is, because we have this sort of sneak peek into other people's lives. It's not real. It's like a little minute thumbnail of a perfect moment, and we all think that they're killing it. And meantime, everyone is having the same insecurities and going through the same stuff and waking up every morning not knowing what they're they're doing. I mean, don't you
think we should share more of that? And do you guys I get such an immense satisfaction when I see other people's shortcomings. This is so terrible. Not like, it's always people that I look up to. If I look down on someone, it's like I never want them to fail or anything like that. But when it's these people who are superhuman to me, these big like industry leaders, and they expose a weakness or them screwing up, I'm like, oh, phew. Like they are kind of like me. Not that I want them to fail.
No, it's a case of like, you're normal.
Yeah.
I go around, I do talks at conferences oftentimes for like on passive income and, building a passive income business as a creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly beat the drum and tell the same story of, drinking too much and being in debt. And I do that because I feel like no one actually admits that. Like everyone has their own things, but like once I tell that story, every single time I ever tell that story, people email me or they come up to me and they're like, dude, I drink too much. Or I have so much debt and like this isn't working. Like I'm struggling to be a designer. There's so many people not saying anything. And the more I hear that, the more I'm just like, man, people really need to tell the truth, because it is really like, it's toxic, man. It's toxic to just constantly see people showing you their best stuff. It's toxic for everybody. It's like we're all poisoning the water.
But don't you find it fascinating that as human beings, like we avoid doing the thing that we know is actually going to help us? So it would really help us all if we were all coming clean and actually showing our true lives, if that makes sense.
I get we have to do our portfolios and they have to look good, but on social media, like I feel like that's the place, like at least somewhere, like even if you work with clients and you're like doing it on your Instagram, clients see it. You could still show I messed up on things. I mean, I don't think that makes you a bad designer or makes people not hire you. They want to see you can solve problems.
But don't you think we even do it like with our friends and family, that we don't always like tell the truth in terms of, we hold back. We say, oh no, it works fine, it works great. Meantime, like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I actually just want to sit down with my family and go, man, you actually don't have a clue what I go through every day. You don't understand how stressed I am. You don't understand, like, you just want to like list all the things that you have to go through and how scared you are most of the time, how uncertain, how anxious, how stressed, but then you're also elated and excited and all the nice things. And you just never talk about those things. It's all like, yeah, no, work's cool. Thanks. Yeah, no, we're going fine. Thanks. It's like, it's just not real, is it?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Amen.
weird?
Amen, sister.
Why do we do that?
Preach, Lisa.
I don't know.
So what's the answer?
Take me to church, Lisa.
Is the answer simply to embrace our imperfections? I know we talked very recently about turning weaknesses into strengths.
Yes.
And that's kind of along the same lines. But yeah, it's like, take solace in, I think people really need a perspective shift, because there is so much fanboying and fangirling. We had a few designers come and visit our office recently, and I said this to them. I really get this from my dad, I think, where he always kind of spoke out against, I guess, like brown nosing people.
Yes.
And that was one of many life lessons growing up, was like, don't do that. That's super creepy. And so I can respect people, but I've been in rooms with people who are like way more successful than me, or they're like the keynote speaker or whatever it might be. And I will always try and talk to them on the same level.
Yeah.
And not be like sucking up to them. I find that super unattractive. But I think that's pretty common in the world, but also in the design industry, where it's such an echo chamber of everyone sharing their work, and then a few names break out, and then everyone just kind of fawns over them. And I think that can be kind of damaging. We've talked about conferences on the show, how these people don't necessarily want that. Like, they want people to go and have a real conversation, because it's awkward if you go up and it's just like, I love your work, and nothing more. But the whole point is, these people are fallible. These people are as imperfect and messed up. And they don't know what the fuck they're doing, like the rest of us. And it's one thing to hear that, but to really internalize it and feel it, and to change your mood and your perspective is a pretty big undertaking. And I have to I'm almost trying to preach this to myself and just say it like a mantra almost, because for so many years I'd follow people and I was like, they can do no wrong, they're perfect. But actually, the deeper we dig with people, we do partnerships with people all the time, and they're all shiny, and everyone's got their own PR, right? We all do our own PR and our company's PR, and they look all shiny and perfect. As soon as we dig below the surface with a lot of people, and I'm not going to name names here, it is a shit show. Like, we deal with like some pretty established companies. They're very nice people, but like they're a mess internally. And I look at it and I'm like, oh man, like this is just like so different from how I perceive them.
Totally.
Because I was perceiving them based on what they put out on their social media, which of course is going to be polished and perfect.
I will name a name. So, and out of complete respect, because I love these people. So Hoodspa, Amy Hood and Jen Hood. If you haven't heard of them, you should go follow them. They're amazing. Their Instagram is amazing. Their work is amazing. Their art is amazing. Anyways, I was at a conference speaking with them, and I mean, these girls, like, you never see them. Everything is perfect, just perfectly executed, perfect Instagram photos. Everything looks like it's part of a magazine spread. And then one morning before their workshop, they were frantically cutting out, like with an X-Acto knife, I think, like the pieces to make the parts fit together for like the workshop.
Yeah.
And it was like, all of a sudden, for the first time, like I saw, whoa, like they're not like immortal beings that are always perfect. They actually do scramble, and it felt so good. Okay, segue. Okay, quick flip into a different thing I wanted to say while I'm talking. I know you're a fan of Alan Watts, right, Tom?
Yeah.
He says this thing that I just think is so cool. He is like, it's all retch and no vomit. And
I saw you post this on your Instagram, and I thought, what a disgusting image.
It's the second time I posted on my Instagram. That's how much I love it. And he's talking about doing what you love, but it fits with this too. It's like, no one wants to like talk about what's wrong, and so it's constant retching. But no one's ever vomiting to get it out of their system, and we need to do that. It's all retch and no vomit.
What you're saying is our lives are one gigantic dry heave.
Exactly, and we need to make it about more vomiting.
Well, I think we know what the podcast artwork's going to be for this episode.
Oh man, I want Lisa to draw that.
Yeah, please. Have like Dustin holding back your hair while you dry heave.
I think I'll do a unicorn vomiting a rainbow. That'll be cool. Much better. Yeah, it's so true. I don't know. It's so interesting how we, we all know this as human beings, that people are not perfect, but yet we just assume that they are, and I don't know. It's a funny thing. I think we waste so much energy, and I'm guilty of it too. I am so guilty. In fact, recently I went through a whole mental thing about, like I'm not good enough, and just like how scared I am and how lost I feel. I literally felt lost, and it seems insane to an outsider, I guess, because it's just something that everybody probably thinks everything's going according to plan, but you lose your way often. So it's just weird that we forget that.
I'm sorry you felt like that recently, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess we all go through that, don't we?
Yeah, I had this, I don't know, 5 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Really, really bad as well. full on
And-
like imposter
and it's
syndrome,
hard-
like everything you're talking about.
Yeah, it's hard to get yourself out of it because like you think that there's like, I mean, okay, obviously being on this planet a little longer, being like 45, obviously been through enough life experiences to know that I will get out of it. But when you're in it, it's like it really seems low. But I think it's that whole thing of as our bodies change and our mind changes, and there's this whole thing of I don't know if you guys sort of follow this kind of thinking, but your cells start vibrating differently when your actual DNA or your body changes, and you feel that it's something that you feel, especially if you're sensitive, and that can make you feel even more out of sorts. And but it is just it's a process of us evolving, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's once you get out of the other end, you feel a lot better and things become clearer and all that kind of stuff. But in the process, you do look around you and you do that hideous comparison game, and it does is it just kills the whole thing even more.
Here's a concept. If you had the choice of either being able to like constantly feel like that and be comparing yourself and worried about perfection, or the alternative was you designed in a vacuum where you never saw anyone's work. So the downside there is you had no point of comparison or reference, no external inspiration really outside of your imagination. What would you go for?
I'd go for the vacuum.
Really?
I think I'd go for the other.
Really?
Because I think that whole thing with like they say the trees on top of mountains. You guys have all heard this like cliche. The trees on top of the mountains have the best grain of wood because they've been against the storms and whatnot.
Right. You think it builds character?
I feel like it builds like something important we need.
You're right, it does. But you know what I find though? I guess the reason why I answered that, because that was the thing recently that I was going through, was because I was comparing myself so much to other artists that I looked up to. And, you start kind of thinking everything you produce isn't, like what the masses will want or what people are looking for. So you start kind of thinking, well, I need to be more like this or I need to be more like that. And then what happens is that, because this is where I got scared, I started questioning my own truth, I don't know how to explain it, like my own creative truth. And that's where it gets horrible, because then you think you start losing that connection with yourself. And I guess that's why I chose the vacuum, because there's too much comparison going on, and if I was just left alone, I wouldn't have that distraction, and eventually your own voice comes through and you don't get sort of bogged down by comparison and all that kind of stuff. But I get what you're saying, Dustin. It's true. You do learn from that for sure.
I'm curious if you feel like this, because I don't feel like I have a creative truth. That that sounded really comforting when you said that. I actually feel a lot more like a the things with the buttons where the ball shoots around.
Not ping
pinball.
pong, pinball.
Yeah, I feel like a pinball machine. I feel like I'm in the pinball machine called Retro Supply, and I just bounce around and like I hit things that happen to be related to what I'm doing, and then I go with it. I never feel like I have like a real orbit, or a real gravity pulling me towards something.
Yeah, I get that. Like for me with design cuts, I feel like so much of it is guessing. There's so much uncertainty. Yeah. It's never like do this and this will happen. It's always your best guess. And not only that, I think I just posted this on my Instagram, but there's always 1,000 or like 10,000 paths you can explore and things that need to be done. And all of them are a good idea in some propensity. But the trick is knowing which ones to prioritize to actually give results, and having like the mindset and the mental strength to carry you through. So right now, the three of us could sit here and we could probably list 5,000 things that in some way would help our creative business and our creativity in general and our career, right? We know it would definitely be a good idea. It wouldn't hurt us. It would help us.
Yeah.
It could be something small, like do this post on Instagram, right?
Right.
Or like add this nice thing for our clients or customers, or take a Skillshare course.
Okay.
to learn something new. Like whatever it was, right? We could come up with a very exhaustive list of stuff where it's all going to help us. But then when you've got 5,000 options and you've got a finite amount of time
Exactly.
and mental energy, it's like, well, how do I pick the right ones? And then with all the stuff of like feeling burnt out and tired and shit happening in life, how do you consistently put one foot in front of the other whilst consistently having to guess that these should be the 2 or 3 things out of the 5,000 that you should be going after?
Welcome to my daily existence.
Thanks so much as always for tuning in for this episode. As I alluded to at the start, we're going to split this one in 2 simply because we don't want to miss a single week for you guys. So I hope you enjoy the part 2 of this coming your way next week. Dustin and I are probably going to be in Creative South at that point. I hope we get to meet some of you guys. I can't wait. And we'll see you next week.